So, welcome to Voron Live. This is the Switchwire edition,
Mm.
where we get to talk about the latest and greatest design that was posted yesterday and will be going live later today, I believe. But I'm just a kind of figurehead, so I'll turn it over to RCF and let him talk about it.
All right. Thanks, Doc. Yeah. We're gonna switch up some wires today. I just posted in the Voron Switchwire questions. There's a lot of like, well, why? And I mean, honestly, I didn't expect nothing less. I mean, we're doing a bet flinger, and we've been talking bad on bet flingers for I don't know since the inception of this project. But I mean, the main reason is like this is my COVID project. It's like once you completed all of the main storyboard, like you got to do all the side quests, and this is my side quest. Um, it was it started off as way back in the day. Voron was actually conceptualized as a Mendel architecture, and I mean everybody calls it i3, but really it's Mendel that started it. It's the second rep that was ever released, and it was basically Voron. It comes from most of the Vorons basically are based on the Mendel architecture, which is the first rep ever designed. So you have a moving gantry in the bed that moves down. Mix and match. If you want to know your rep history, go to reprep.org and look that up. Mendel was the second architecture that was released with a moving bed and the X moving this way, and then in Z as well. And then the young Joe Prusa came along and started iterating. And by iteration number 3, which is what I3 stands for, he pretty much got it nailed down. And then China kind of saw it and went, "Ooh, we can make that out of acrylic." And ANET was born. And then Creality came along, and then the rest is kind of history. So I kind of just wanted to do a bed flinger and see if it can be any good, and surprisingly, it was. I guess if you put enough engineering and enough thought into the design, you can do great things with Mendel architecture. I think the main selling point of Switchwire versus any other i3 is the Core XZ, which allows you to do very fast Z moves, and it's basically the cheapest way you can do Z belt-driven Z. So you take out lead screws out of the equation, so that eliminates the Z wobbles and having to deal with it. So super fast Z hops. You can do non-planar printing. Somebody on Discord mentioned that. So when you basically printing in 3D space, that's the new hottest thing that was posted a few months ago. But yeah, it's a fairly solid machine. I mean, it uses 360 and 330. 3060 and 3030 for the frame, and then some 2020s mixed in for mounting the rails and stuff. But it's kind of a shit brick house, brick shit house. It's my newest favorite story right now, actually. And then the enclosure, this is kind of like the naked version of it right now. The enclosure that's sitting next to it is removable and completely optional. So if you're just printing, PLA or PETG on it, you don't need an enclosure for it. Enclosure you would need for things like ABS or PC, where if you're flinging a bed, you might as well be flinging it in a contained space with hot air that's actually trapped inside of it. So everybody wants to know when it's going to be released. Today. We are going to be releasing the bill of materials, the CAD, so the CAD drawings for it, and the sourcing guide, obviously, and the STLs for you to print. I want to first out, I want to extend a huge thank you to Steve for basically finding all of the weird nagging issues and solving a whole bunch of them, and really putting a lot of work into this printer. So thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
the machine is 100 times better because you got involved in it. So, yeah, for now we're going with basically, I mean, a lot of design dimensions are going to be based off what bed you're using and the Y carrier. The stock design uses Prusa's MK52 bed and the Prusa's aluminum Y carrier. But I can't see why this can be scaled to any bed you might have laying around. So again, CAD will be released. Go forth and scale.
So theoretically, that CR10 bed that you've got floating around could be used if you just scale the frame appropriately.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you can go adding. You can add, more than one. Originally, design had 2 Y rails. We ended up just sticking with 1 because it was stable enough. And then the rails we're using is MG and 12. So if you have some V slot laying around, you want to cut up for it, by all means. You'll bolt right on.
Yep.
I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Unless I missed some glaring things.
Let's see. All right. Trying to juggle different screens. Questions. Of course, everyone's talking about tool changers, multi-material, and everything else. I know that's something that, well, not tool changing, but the Y head that Uber was playing with. Scales nicely with this.
Let me go find it. 1 second. I have one too.
Yep. So
the Y splitter.
Yep, the Y splitter head.
Call yourself, so I gotta find it.
But anyways, so one thing that is being worked on is a Y splitter head that basically leverages the jetpack system as a 2 in, 1 out setup. So, yeah, interesting times. And Eddie has arrived.
Wow, Eddie appears.
Hey, how's it going?
You're a little faint on the audio.
I'll work on that.
Ah, found it.
Yep, there you go. You are way more organized than I am, by the way.
Ta-da! So, yeah, this is the Bowden adapter. Sends the rear part that has the chain mount to it. But it has 2 ins and 1 out. This was always just a straight pass through, so it made sense for us to have channels that basically made this into a Y adapter, and it makes it more low profile than having this thing plus the Bowden tube inside of it plus the Y adapter hanging off the end of it. So this kind of moves the Y adapter inside.
Yep.
Yeah, this is like super experimental. So
there be dragons.
Is there anything
we have 0 printers using it right now. Uber Nero is like this close to getting his profiles dialed in, so you can actually like do a 2-color or 2-material print. This isn't a end-all be-all solution for multi-material, as we've talked with Eddie about it, who is named Joshua for some reason now that I'm thinking about it. Eddie the engineer, aka Joshua. Don't worry about it. The issue with these is if you're going to use soluble materials, you're going to have residue of soluble materials baked into your main material. So it's not recommended to use this kind of Y splitter for solubles. You really need a separate nozzle and a hot end for solubles. But if you're just using 2 colors or 2 similar enough materials, I guess, that can be done with it.
Yeah, but that's, not to say that the palette or the MMU2 are also perfect solutions. I mean, I spent 2 hours this morning fighting the Palette 2 Pro S that Eddie has loaned me, and it was just shattering filament because I guess it just didn't like me today. So, I mean, there is no magic bullet yet. at least cost, performance, everything else. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you pay your money, you take your chances.
Yep. You also live in a sauna, so your filament may very well be very wet.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, let's see. Actually, are you set up so that you could do kind of a visual walkthrough of the rig?
Maybe. I guess I can lift it up and put it
I
on my
mean,
desk.
God forbid we ask you to get your workout in today.
It is not light. The 3060 extrusions are not what we call light. Plus all the other stuff.
I can do the same if you want.
Let me move my. Oh yeah, Steve got one. Move my camera so I don't knock it over. Move my water bottle so I don't knock that over. Really, just move everything.
Yeah, just move it all. But while he's doing that, I'll say that this went from, I'll be very honest, when I saw a couple of things that they were doing on this, I was like, that's cool and all, but I'm not a fan. Just like straight up, no,
The biggest not fan was the key back in the back.
Yes, and actually, that's a good thing that you brought this over to actually show off and talk about.
Yeah. So when you have a belt-driven system without the 5-to-1 reduction on the gearing for the belt-driven Z, the gantry just drops on power down. But this gantry isn't dropping. Magic! Well, not really. There is a heavy-duty keychain holder thing that they use in like law enforcement and prisons. It's basically meant to like clip on your belt and carry a giant set of keys. And they come in different ounce ratings. This is the 13-ounce rating. This is the Keyback Super 48. And it's ubiquitous, even in Europe, apparently. You can get, they're made in USA, but they're shipped globally. So sourcing it is not really a problem. But it does things like, it stays. Magic.
And also, I will point out that the keyback, the other nice thing about it is it's not like just the random like badge holders you have at wherever you got your first job at an office building. That
Right.
thing's actually got aramid fiber as its line. You're not going to break it.
Yeah, it's super heavy duty, to be honest with you. I'm actually really impressed with it. And do be careful when you're installing or removing it, because this thing has looped all the way around the top idler in the back and hit me in the face. And if I wasn't wearing glasses, I'd be one-eyed right now. Like these are new glasses because the other glasses, one of the when it came around, looped around, it basically put a giant gash in one of my lenses. So yeah, this machine cost me an eye. Please be careful.
Not just a good idea.
With all of this, just be careful. So yeah, I mean, Core Z lets you do these things that you can't do on. This is actually, this is so similar to V2 that for the longest time I kept grabbing the tool head and trying to move it forward on the V2. But it can't because it's bolted to the frame. But yeah. The bed setup is fairly standard. I mean, there is a drill guide. I'm not going to take the bed off right now. There's a drill guide for drilling out your Prusa Y carrier for putting the required 6 extra holes in it. 2 for the MGN and then 2 for the Y belt mounting system. So the Y belt anchor, it's down there basically. It kind of dips into the slot to pick up the belt, and the belt is kind of routed through the inside of the slot. Kind of been wanting to do that since day one. I don't know, dream come true, yay. But the end stop is actually mounted to there as well, and it cleans up the front of it quite a bit. So you don't have any wires on the front idler. I don't know if you guys can see that. Dip it down. There we go. Yeah, it cleans up this whole job right here. That was actually a Steve suggestion. Like, why don't we just put it on the Y carrier? And then Eddie was super happy because we moved the Y. Let's see. The X end stop got moved from over here on this block right here to the X carriage, a la 1.8 that he did, and that cleaned all of this up. This is all kind of standard issue stuff. Again, I'm not going to take this apart, but there's an adapter inside here that adapts this carriage to the MGN 12. And then the belts are mounted in the back here. I don't know if you guys can see it very well, but there's a full belt retention situation in the back. This thing uses only 20 idlers, I think. I haven't counted
Yeah,
yet.
20.
Is that true?
It's right at 20. Yeah.
Okay. Including the Y?
Yes.
And then we forgot the key back. So the key back in the back has a idler at the top that I can't really show.
I believe it's 20 with the idler.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah,
Nice
in the back.
package number.
Very nice. So yeah, get 2 Tempex. There's the standard issue. I was gonna put a grooved bearing here, a single bearing, but that would be like you'd be using one bearing from like a 20 pack, and that wasn't gonna fly. Ugh. God damn, this thing's heavy. Nice thing about being heavy is it's
Heavy is reliable. Heavy
it
is
doesn't
good.
move on prints. I like it. I put fuzzy tape around the outsides of it, and then under the deck, kind of keep the noise down. It's like the automotive trick where they put fuzzy tape before they slap a panel on, so you basically don't have 2 panels vibrating against each other. Yeah.
How difficult was it to adapt Afterburner for an MG?
Eddie, you need to either boost your gain or get close to your mic.
I'll figure it out.
I think you're using a mic that's not on your head.
Yeah, I thought I swapped it around, but I guess I didn't, so don't worry about me.
I can starting to hear you.
Let's see. Oh, good. I'm glad someone got that reference. What else? There was something I was going to ask.
So
I can't remember.
why MGN 12 specifically for this design?
3030.
3030, and it's also easier to source in the US.
It's MGN 12 is easier to source in general. 3030 has an 8mm slot, so MGN 9 would just fall through. It's the same problem as it's the same problem you have with V slot. And honestly, we would like for people to use V slot for our printers because it's ubiquitous and cheap.
So, question I got asked about using Galileo with it. Yes. Anything that fits the Afterburner pattern will work. So, the Afterburner Bowden module, totally. Galileo, fine, game on. The random extruder that you dreamed up and fits in that space, have at it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's the same ecosystem. So, yeah, you can pretty much slap whatever you want on it.
I mean, hey, if you want to design a Zesty Nimble mount to fit there, good on you, dude.
I think that exists, actually.
It wouldn't surprise me.
You do you, man.
Exactly.
It's only money.
Yeah, it's only money. Question about, said a single rail under the bed is enough. What's to keep the bed from tilting side to side?
The aluminum carriage and the bed sandwich. Turn the fan on because it's getting warm in here.
Yeah, I think maybe also the concern is around a bad tolerance MGN 12. That you can have the carriage rock on the rail.
Right. If you get rails from a supplier, that have a whole bunch of slop in them, even though you specified light preload, you need to contact that supplier and tell them that's wrong, and they will send you new ones. They normally, if you're like a one-off, but if you say you're building a Voron, the Chinese suppliers are now listening, and they're interested in return customers basically, because it's a huge revenue stream for them. So yes, there is a possibility that you're going to get a rail that wobbles too much and causes too much wobble in the Y. Get that rail replaced, or find the one rail that doesn't do that and put that on the. Find the two most wobbliest rails can go on the Z because they're pretty much constrained against each other, but you can use the other two more tight rails for the Y and the X.
0.9 versus high torque 1.8s. I know you're running 0.9s on yours, right, Max?
No, I'm back to 1.8.
Okay.
The 0.9 that I got in the package size that Prusa uses, which is a 42 by 42 by 39, the smaller motor. Let me get some motors.
Yep. So while he's rummaging for motors, Belted Z give you anything that a high-quality lead screw wasn't able to achieve? So lead screw wobble is a thing that is real and haunts me still to this day from my 1.5 era printers. I had some really high-quality ones. I didn't go ball screw, but belts are a whole lot cheaper than ball screws. So it basically gives us that, and also it lets us have faster reaction time, if I understand it. Not an engineer. Belts let you move at higher speeds and higher accelerations than what you could really safely do with lead screws, ball screws, etc.
Yes. If you throw enough money into the printer, you can get it to move super fast in Z and super accurately with high quality, high pitch lead screws or ball screws. Belt driven Z is the cheapest way to achieve high speed Z that's repeatable and backlash free, basically.
So
same thing goes for Voron 2, same thing goes for Switchwire.
Cool. So you found the motors that you were going to talk about.
Oh yeah. So these are the spec motors that are on the bomb. These are for comparison, this is the OG Voron spec motor, which is the big boy basically. This is the maximum you can get before going insane with a quadruple stack motor. These are super smooth, but I only have one of them. The 0.9 degree steppers that I got from OMC in this form factor were 0.9 amps as well. So the envelope of I'm going to have some torque, enough torque to move this printer, and then to the other point, whereas you can hear my printer working from 3 blocks away, was very, very narrow, and I got tired of chasing it. So I swapped back to 0.8 degree motors, which meant I had to notch the panels. But these are butter smooth. They're about $1.50 cheaper than the stock motors, so you're saving a little bit of cost. And for Switchwire, at least, relevant to Switchwire at least, there's a 3-pack of these on AliExpress from OMC. It comes into like $22 with $10 shipping, or $5 shipping. It's the cheapest way to get into stepper motors, I think. And then you'll need a pancake for your. You'll need either one more of these for your Bowden setup if you're going with Bowden, or that pancake motor for the afterburner.
Let's see. How many rails are on the X? Just one, because it's the MGN12, right?
Yes.
Yep. So this lets you get away with having one less rail you have to buy, one less potential point of failure or potential point of misalignment.
Yeah. For reference, Voron 24, that monster all aluminum thing that I did, way back in the days that Nimgria lives next to. That used a single MGN12 cart for X and a single, well, per side on the Y. And it was fine. And really, like, MGN12 lets you get away with a whole lot more shenanigans than MGN9 does, especially in the manufacturing tolerances. MGN12 seems to be err on the side, like all of them seem to err on the side of light preload versus no preload at all. Even the cheapest, the rails that I'm using in these, I bought 5 years ago on Amazon. And I mean, they weren't great, but they were smooth enough after I cleaned them out and cut them to the right length. That, you know, it works.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at that single rail after having fought misaligned helixed dual rails on one of my printers. I'm like, can I put that on my 2.4? Yeah, I'll be that
Maybe.
guy. What?
Maybe.
I mean, hey, it's only money.
Exactly.
It's only going to be a weekend of my life that I won't get back. Ballpark build price. I think we've all kind of thrown around that there's probably $700 is the number I have in my head.
Less than that. So $600-700 if you're going like as pictured in the video. If you forego the panels, the enclosure panels and stuff over here, that whole box, you can shave about $100 off. If you have a Prusa MK3 or really any Prusa with the magnetic plate, you know, bed, the spring steel sheet is important because you need it to trigger the inductive probe. The costs go way down because you can essentially, that's essentially what Steve did is he harvested his MK3 for parts. Steve, you want to talk about what you were able to get out of it?
Yeah, I was able to use the power supply, the X, Y, and extruder steppers, the display, the controller board.
And the bed, obviously.
And the bed, of course. Yeah, the bed and Y carriage.
Yeah.
So that saved quite a bit.
Yeah, all the big ticket items that you need on every 3D printer, the motors, the controller, the power supply, and the bed. And the Hotend?
You could. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't. I used a Dragon.
Right.
But you absolutely could use
it. Yeah,
it.
you can get the Hotend out of it, and I believe you can harvest the B&G gears out of their setup.
Correct. You would have to, for an afterburner, you'd have to add the few dollars in Bondtech parts because it's direct Bondtech drive on a Prusa.
Oh, gotcha.
The 3-to-1 ratio.
I mean, you're saving...
That's less than $10 in parts.
Yeah, but you're still saving a bunch of money.
Yes.
Like all the big ticket items are basically covered by the donor printer.
Yep.
Which I don't think we've done before. We mostly just say like, oh no, just build new because it'll be better. Because a lot of people come in and say, well, I have an ANET 8 or whatever, and I want to, you know, use it for parts and stuff. And we say, no. Most Prusa kits, even the clone kits, will work.
Yep. Question about why we didn't use a carbon fiber plate to minimize weight. Carbon fiber has issues with most commercially available normal person accessible epoxies that they use to bond the sheets together that above 110, 130 C, so right at ABS temperatures, start to delaminate, and delamination bad. So if we can find something that will stick together with ABS temperatures, we might use it. But if it doesn't work with ABS, we'll probably consider something else.
Honestly, it's not an issue. Especially now, I mean, right now you can already tune fairly well for acceleration, individual acceleration, and square corner velocity, basically. I mean, even in Marlin, you can tune it to be awesome. I mean, look at all the... Prusa is popular for a reason. That machine produces great prints because it's tuned properly and it knows, you know, where the limitations are and works against its strengths, not its weaknesses. Especially now with Klipper's new input shaper stuff that you basically can tune for a specific resonance frequency and cancel it out. You can like throw a dumbbell on the Y and you'll be fine. I mean, yes, you can't go as fast because you're still limited by physics, and physics, as Adam put the other day, is a cruel mistress. But yeah, it's not another consideration against carbon fiber's cost. I mean, you can go carbon fiber. You can build this whole printer out of carbon fiber if you wanted to, and you have more money than God. You can do a solid carbon fiber Voron, but you might as well do a solid carbon fiber V2 at that point.
I mean,
you just,
yeah, there is no problem that cannot be solved by a very liberal application of money.
Correct. And the wild Joshua appears to talk about input shaper.
Hey, how's it going?
Better.
Much better.
So
that sounds amazingly better.
Yeah.
Good.
We teed you up perfectly to talk input shaper, by the way. So
yeah, definitely. I caught that, and I'm a little delayed, but yeah, I'm really excited to see where that goes. I'm just happy that Dimitri has done all the work to implement that, and it seems like all the accelerometer data has essentially been, started to be merged into the mainline Klipper. So that'll be really good. I'm excited to do more testing to get a better idea of belt tensions and things like that. But it'll be interesting seeing what people find out once they start doing it on Switchwire. So.
Yeah, I'm excited. Right now, my only reason to not use it is because you kind of have to sideload all of the mainsail and moonraker stuff for the web.
Yeah, so if you're using the accelerometer, you have to do that. But I guess if the mainsail pulled all the latest Klipper code in, it should work essentially. But yeah, that would have to be a mainsail update to pull that in.
This is all temporary until Moonraker is built in.
Exactly.
And that's going to happen real soon. I think we're close to the beta. Mainsail and Moonraker, we kind of demoed it at the last Voron Live. You kind of saw quite a bit of it in the video. Thanks to Raymond, we have Mainsail OS now, which is kind of like a Octopi. So it's a built-in image that we're testing essentially right now that comes with everything you need to know. It has Klipper on it. It has Moonraker, which is the API to talk directly to Klipper. And then it has Mainsail, which is the UI that you saw. That's basically the three pieces that you need to make all that work. And it comes in an image. You put it on an SD card. And then just like, Octopi, you edit your little WPA file so it has a chance to connect to the network when it's booted up. You can also throw your config file for your printer into the boot while you have it plugged into your computer. And then when the machine comes up, it copies the printer config over and brings it up, and then, hey, you have a printer. It was basically amazing because I took an image, put on my printer config on it, edited my WPA file to connect to my network, popped it in the printer, and the printer came up, and it was there, and it was magical. So once that all gets ironed out and we get to the beta stage of all of this, I'm super excited for community to try it because it's awesome. It is lacking the vast library of plugin supports that Octoprint currently has, and that is true, but I don't see why we can't get there eventually.
And the other thing to point out is that the Mainsail and Moonraker and everything else, we're getting high-end functionality, not having to run a beast of a Pi. We can actually get away with running all of this on a Pi 0 and happily, versus you try to run that with Octoprint, nope.
Yeah.
Game over.
I had, I think, maybe 15% CPU utilization on a Pi 0. It's a single core CPU. I actually was running this on a 0 at some point, and it was working. So,
speaking of controllers and everything else, this one is a little bit different. Well, not different, I guess, but we didn't spec an SKR 1.3 in this thing, which is odd for us.
True, because Big Tree Tag BTT finally got off their ass and fixed their thermistor issues. in SKR Mini V2 or SKR Mini E3 V2 newest version 2020, whatever they listed on AliExpress. The 1.2 version of that board, which was, so the board is supposed to clone whatever is inside an Ender 3, but it has soldered on 229 drivers on it, TMC 229 drivers, and it's got 5 of them. So it's a compelling like proposition for Voron builders because everything comes on the board, and it's very price competitive to that. But 1.2 had a slight, electrical engineering bug basically, where thermistor inputs were completely out of whack. And Marlin did fine with it because Marlin has like 3 layers of smoothing built into it, whereas Klipper just says, "Give me temperature now, give me temperature now," and it wasn't having any of it. I actually have in my V2, I'm running 1.2 versions that I did the Bragg Show hack on, which is removing one of the resistors, I think. That basically fixes all of the problems. But in version 2 of the board, Big Tree Tech basically fixed the issue out of the box. So yes, we're actually speccing SKR Mini E3 V2.
And the other great thing about that board, it has 2 fan headers that can be controlled in software.
Yes, versus 1 in the previous.
Yeah, it still blows my mind that we have controller boards that you only get 1 controllable fan.
Makes no sense.
What's
Now,
the
this
solution
machine-
for the display for that, since the Mini only has 1 of the EXP headers?
There's a cable wiring diagram that will publish
Got it.
with the manual.
Got it. Okay.
It can, yes, you can run the Fostech Mini 12864 whatever display on it.
Perfect.
There's also a display adapter for the ancient 2004 unit module. It's not the year it was built. That's just the part number. But that's the stock LCD for Prusas. So you can wire that in as well.
So a lot of requests to see this thing in action. So it may be a separate video you post later, not just the teaser video, unless you want to kick something off now.
Maybe they find a long enough power cord.
Let's see. All right, so while he's rummaging for power cords and extension cords and other stuff, what other questions y'all have? I'm sitting here trying to bounce between YouTube chat and now I'm back in Discord.
All the chats.
All the chats.
I'm seeing a comment, Doc. I'm seeing a comment in there about you have to literally break the Prusa board to upload different firmware. That's true for the Prusa Mini. That's not true for the Mark III board. There are some additional onboard, I think in the USB controller or something, that would be wise to flash, but you're not breaking it. You're just changing the firmware on it.
Yeah, print speeds. Steve, Max Rummages, what speeds are you getting out of your rig?
I don't run any of my rigs fast. I never need print super quick, so I tend to be very conservative on my speeds. I think I'm probably 50 or 60 millimeters per second is my average speed on that I've been printing with.
I at some point ran default Voron profile, so 120, 50% speed reduction for 60 for perimeters and 80 for infill. Is that what we have? What's the V2 like standard speed?
My
speed?
stock profile that's posted right now, not my warp speed prototype profile, is 40 external, 80 internal perimeters, 100 millimeter sec infill, and so 1500 perimeter acceleration 3,000 inner perimeter acceleration and 4,000 for infill accels. That is not my current PIF profile, but it'll get you close enough. Yes, all the Z-hops all the time.
This is the reason why I built this printer. No, but the story behind this is I printed this on a Voron 0.8, so like pre-release. And then my daughter was born, and then when she was like 1.5, she went to go grab it, and it flew off the shelf. But thankfully, it didn't hit her, but it did shatter in a million pieces. She's 4.5 now, and I finally replaced it.
There was a question about, it looks like there's no nozzle probe. So, yes, we're going only inductive probe on this. And how do you make sure that the nozzle isn't back in the same place if you, say, change tool heads? Well, the really nice thing about the Dragon and Mosquito Hotends is that the nozzle index location is same. So if you build 3 different Hotends, you're going to be within a couple of baby steps one way or the other on that. And also, this is speccing Omron probes. You can buy the B-stocks on AliExpress that may or may not be complete total fakes, or you can buy legit ones, but you know those probes are so consistent over time and over temperature that you can totally get away without running a nozzle probe if you're using something like the Dragon or Mosquito. At least I think. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, and especially if you have a very consistent routine, like if you always warm up your printer and let it heat soak before you home, like certain things like that, you're going to be safe. It's more like if you're going to, home from ambient temperatures and then print right away or stuff like that gets you mixed up. But yeah.
Yeah, it was a necessary evil that we don't have a nozzle probe on it. And I'm kind of sad about it, but also I haven't had any issues with it. It's a feature that we advertise, the swappable nozzles or the easy swap nozzles. But for a majority of my printers, I don't swap nozzles all that often, or the tool heads. And this isn't like meant to be the high-end Voron. This is like your first build that you use because you have an MK3 and you want to salvage the parts off of it to get into the taste of what Voron is supposed to be.
So the bed, we are speccing a DC bed, 24 volts. 240 watt power supply, 24 volt. Please.
350 watt power supply.
350 watt. Yes, thank you. The Prusa is the 240 watt.
Yes.
But also, we're in 2020. 24 volt only. Please. 12 volt was great back in the day, but 24 volts. Your steppers and everything else will thank you.
Yes. It's going to be magical. I'm going to, while we're reprinting things that children have broken, I'm going to reprint this vase that I printed a long time ago. Let's watch Max use a slicer program. Tune in for more. It's like Uber Nero at some point had a stream where he just sorted screws.
Yeah.
I got a fence to paint. You guys want to come along, and it's going to be amazing. You guys can watch the paint dry.
Are you still using S3D? Or have you joined us in the modern era with a different slicer?
No, Simplify 3D works for me. And it really is. I haven't had time to adjust my workflow and migrate all my settings, and because I've been working on this thing or some other printer.
Profile.
There's always 10 billion projects to work on, so it's hard to focus on something like that, like migrating slicer settings.
Right, shiny object syndrome is strong with Voron. All right, let's kick off a print, shall we?
Let's see. if you're running an unenclosed, couldn't you just run a BL touch? Yes, you could.
Yep.
Nothing's stopping you. It's just we prefer inductive probes over that.
There's a video that Thomas Sandlander, I'm sorry, all the German viewers that I butchered that. But he did a comprehensive test of all the probe technology. And the numbers show inductive probes are more repeatable than BL Touch. BL Touch works if you have a glass bed, because you don't have anything inductive to trigger against. But again, it's 2020. Why are you still printing on glass?
Yep.
There are better solutions out there. And we are heating. Okay. The nice thing about printing in PLA, the bed heats up so quickly. It's so nice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Less mess.
I'm gonna move the printer a little closer. Hopefully I don't unplug it in the middle in the process.
So inductive probes aren't repeatable across different temperatures, though. Well, it depends. I mean, if you're buying a legit Panasonic or a legit Omron, it's going to look a lot different on your response and everything else than your Photech B-Stock $5 AliExpress special. There's a whole lot of differences between legit engineering grade components and other things.
Certified is the key word you're looking for.
Yes, certified.
Components are certified usually for repeatability, plus or minus whatever. You can get super expensive inductive probes that are plus or minus microns.
Yep.
And you need them for, medical applications or high precision industrial applications or aerospace applications. And you're going to pay an aerospace price for it. There's a happy medium between, like what Doc said, basically a $5 inductive probe, which is some coil that a 15-year-old wound up on his finger and stuck it, hot glued it inside a plastic enclosure, versus something like an Omron B-Stock probe that you have on AliExpress that can be had for $12, I think. What do they run?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And again, you can buy the same exact probe from DigiKey for $30, but why?
Well, no, the Omron that it's a B stock of is the legit stock Omron.
It's doing a thing. Oh, here's the bed probing. Real time. I think some people were confused that like the video was sped up. It wasn't. It actually that fast to probe. And it's fairly quiet. I can't hear what my microphone's hearing, but
I don't hear hardly anything.
Not a lot, no.
okay, yeah, it's pretty quiet. And I'm actually using TPU feet that are printed on this machine.
Yep.
Because you have direct feed now, you can do, probing, or you can do. All right, do your thing.
So someone asked,
Yep.
Is there any reason I wouldn't want to pull the steppers, my SKR, my bed, anything else anything else I have off of an Ender 3 to get started with a Switchwire? I mean, none. Have at it. Dive in.
Two caveats. Ender 3's pulleys are almost friction welded to the shafts. You will need some kind of a contraption and a hammer and a die to hammer out the pulleys off the shafts without them damaging the steppers in the process. And what else? And the motor shafts on those motors are smaller. And the reason I know this is because I have one and has taken one apart before. I bought an Ender, y'all, because it was on sale. It was terrible.
How much did you pay for it?
It was $120 shipped to my door.
Wow.
I know.
Amazing.
They were just giving them away. And they're still making profit on them somehow.
China.
Because China.
China.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
see.
Yeah, one more comment about the inductive probe. One thing you can do with your own probe if you want to check it is do a bed accuracy or a probe accuracy test in Klipper when the printer is completely at ambient conditions, and then slowly as the bed and Hotend kind of warms up, you can keep running that test and see how far your probe drifts. I found certain probes, maybe it's a lot thing or a supplier thing. But some of them may drift, multiple layer heights, which obviously that's an issue. And other ones are kind of very close and, won't be a big issue. So just something you can check on your current printer and see how bad it is or good it is. So.
For sure. Thank you. It's a very, very good point. On a complex machine or exponentially more complex machine than this one, like a V2, for example, there are more factors than just the accuracy of the probe itself. If you really want to go down the science route and build a repeatable contraption with no backlash, with ball screws and measured plates and spec, things to trigger against, and do a comprehensive study of all inductive probes you can buy for X and Y dollars. I don't have time to do that kind of research, but if somebody wants to do that, go for it. On a V2, you have multiple other factors. You can have belt stretch factor. You can have backlash somewhere in the system because the belts are not tight enough. Tight enough. You can have a bent motor shaft. That has happened. You can have a pulley that wasn't drilled right all at the center. That has happened as well. So there are many factors that you can have for repeatability being an issue. But the probe itself, it's not even in the same ballpark as the accuracy we're looking for, as far as the air goes. And as per usual, you get what you pay for.
How big can you build this printer? I saw that question.
I don't know. It's 3060 and 3030. I'm pretty sure you can slap the big boy Ender CR10. What's the CR10 Max? The 500 by 500?
The S5, or that's probably an old model. They've probably updated it.
The whatever it has the 500. It's like the Insanity. It looks like a child's crib that somebody built a printer inside of. Yeah, if you have one of those, by all means, the CAD is going to be released. Scale it to all.
As long as you take pictures, I want to see pictures.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And I mean, again, 3030 with MGN12 rails. I don't know, slap another Y rail on it while you're at it and go for it. You scale anything to any size you want.
The belts are much shorter, I guess, for Y, so hopefully that resolves some of the long belt issues for Core XY. That's a good question. How long are the belts for the Core XZ?
1500, just on. I think it's just under.
That's not bad. That's pretty short.
1500 per run, 1500 millimeters per run. It's just around the V2, V1. And I think the Y belt is 700, 600.
Another question, is cost the intrinsic reason for this machine? Or is there another reason?
Absolutely. This is the cheapest way to build a printer. What I wanted to know is how cheap can I build a Voron that's still good, that's bigger than a V0? Because of course, if you shrink it down, it'll be cheaper. But I wanted to have a printer that's price competitive, I guess, and still be in up to Voron standards, basically. And Doc has not certified this machine as a PIF machine yet, but hopefully once he builds one, he will be able to certify it as a PIF machine, and then all of a sudden you can so basically for the price of this machine, for the price of V1, V1 or V2s, right? You can build 2 of these, and then you have twice as, you just doubled your PIF output. Print it forward.
Theoretically. We'll see.
Theoretically. Allegedly.
When are your parts showing up, Doc?
Thursday.
So
It sounds
basically,
like you have a
we won't
weekend
hear from
project.
him because he's going to go into his cave. Like a week from now is going to be like in front of the pegboard with strings attached to it and pictures, with the rest of the hair missing.
Yeah, I'm having to mute myself because people were complaining about echo, so I'm trying to figure out an alternative audio solution. So you guys talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
When are you going to finish building your V0?
Is that question for me?
That's
Yep.
clearly a question for Doc.
Oh.
No, that's
Did
a
you
question
just-
for Mac.
Okay,
Oh.
so the story about V0, originally I wanted it to be a printer that I build with my daughter. She's getting there, but not quite. I'm actually going to start printing some pink ABS parts, and me and my kid are going to sit down and build the V0 together. It's going to be super cute.
It's going to be pink, and is pink the accent color or pink the base color?
I have 2 shades of pink.
Nice.
It's going to be pink. It's going to be all pink. I'm thinking about getting some pink spray paint. But I have the aluminum, the Mizumi silver frame. But I might go black with the pink accents and go like, a little edgy. So yes, I am going to build it. I have all intentions to do so. I'm waiting for my child to get old enough so she remembers the process. Because, goddamn it, I want to form memories and get credit for it later.
Just in time for V0.1.
Perfect. Is that already in the works?
A little bit, yeah.
You heard it here, folks. It's happening. I gotta
The
say,
next question is, when is it going to get released?
Ooh.
0.1 next week or next month or next year?
oh, I'm sorry, Joshua. Where's the 1.8 manual?
Oh,
Shots
man.
fired.
Glass houses, glass
Yeah, I'm gonna-
houses, buddy.
Yep. I'm just going to stop talking. Uh,
Well, it's doing the thing. It's doing a pretty thing.
I mean, I can speak to it a little bit. Right now, we're kind of focusing on trying to the V0 is not a super simple build, nowhere near as simple as the Switchwire. So we're kind of trying to focus on simplifying some of that stuff and make it a little more user-friendly, as well as some creature comforts here and there.
That's very cool. Yeah, V0 reminds me of like an early Honda, where you go in there, you open the hood, and there's no space to work on anything because everything is taken up by a part that needs to be there. Like super compact, super close packaging.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
There was a question earlier on Z-scoring on the Switchwire and any possible racking issues.
Racking, the core racking.
That's what I read it as.
Okay. Well, mesh leveling kind of takes care of any wrecking that you incur that you can't dial out with by adjusting the tension on the motors. And yes, the tension on either belts is adjustable individually. So you can basically like get it where you need to be, and then you can dial in the tension kind of like the same way you would, fix the racking on a core XY system by, tensioning the belts until they're perfect. You can do the same thing here. But if that ever moves on you because your one belt stretched more than the other belt, the automatic bed meshing will take care of that for you. Because to the printer, it doesn't matter if the bed tilted or the rack got, didn't get wrecked. and then the turbofan kicks on.
Yeah, I can't hear a thing. All right, hold on 1 second. More audio issues. Uh, let's see. Does this work, guys? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out exactly where the issue is on the stream. Like, no, it's on me. All right, try talking again, guys. Oh, crap. All right.
Let's see.
Oh, wait. Now I can hear you at least.
We're live back. They cut off audio until the 1.8 manual is done. That's fun.
Sorry, man. I have to bring it up every time.
No, it's real. The one thing I have been working on, I'm gonna assume that the stream audio is back. I have been taking the SKR documentation that I had written for the Voron 2, and I've been trying to break that up into more of a modular kind of approach that will work for all of the different Voron printers. So it'll be kind of a choose your own path. It won't be, tailored as much towards one specific controller, but you'll kind of step through the initial wiring steps and installing Klipper, and then depending on whatever controller you'll have, you'll kind of choose your own path and say, I have an SKR 1.3 or 1.4, or insert future amazing control board that we all think is, we all discover in 6 months. It'll have instructions to do that. So I won't have to maintain, 3 or 4 different versions of the guide. It'll all kind of be modular. As well, I'm hoping to host it on GitHub so that, in case you see an error or something's misspelled or something's changed, that you'd be able to submit a pull request and get the documentation updated without, it would be more of a community document instead of a, one person has the source and it has to be maintained by that one singular person. So I'm excited about that. It's a lot of work to restructure it all, but I'll be happy once that's done. So.
Dunar is complaining that I took a cheap shot at you and Eddie, at him and Eddie, and I want to publicly apologize for it. It's not anybody's fault that the manual is not done. It's just really tedious and really long process, and it's usually the least fun.
Documentation's never fun. So.
No, it's terrible, which is why so many printers don't have it any. Somebody said people want to see the enclosure. It is more rigid when it's actually bolted to the printer. But there it is. Enclosure.
I'm curious, RCF, have you tested enclosure temperatures at all?
I have. This guy gets to about 40, 50 internally.
Nice. That's very
Fahrenheit.
respectable. Yeah. I hope that's Celsius.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Celsius. I'm sorry. Yeah, Celsius.
We cool our printers down.
Sub-zero, man. Yeah, it has a slot in the top for your filament input. These are kind of strapped together. I have the LED strips that Eddie did. I unmodularized them, basically glued them all together in Slicer or in CAD to make them basically a structural piece. And then it has a plug. The wires run here, and there's a plug on the bottom to disconnect it if you want to take the enclosure off. And then ABS panels, courtesy of Nimgria on the back. You can use Coroplast if you want. The DXFs are available. So if you want to cut them yourself, by all means. Or you can just buy the panels from Nimgria. He'll have it on his store, I believe, shortly.
Yeah, probably about the end of the month. I have a
and honestly, like
supply issue.
Sizable weight. And a metric ton of VHB tape was used in the creation of that enclosure. I actually legitimately, like no joke, ran out of VHB building this thing.
And yes, it will be marked down. If you ask me in the Voron Discord, I will be able to send you a link to kind of where it's at right now. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. Then there's another comment about input shaper shouldn't be an excuse for bad hardware. And I completely agree. I'm hoping to flesh out some more of the, you've done your first print and then kind of more of a, okay, what do you do next with, tuning input shaper or pressure advance or strap an accelerometer, all those types of things you can do to your printer to make sure, okay, I'm having this issue with print quality. How do I make it better? Because the same thing with bed mesh, I think, applies to input shaper, where if you have hardware problems and you slap bed mesh on there, it's not going to resolve. You're kind of putting a Band-Aid over it instead of fixing the underlying issue. Like with V1.8, if you went ahead and assembled a frame crooked, a bed mesh isn't really the ideal solution there. But if your bed is actually concave or convex, that's a place to put bed mesh in. Same thing with input shaper. It is not the first thing you do. It's one of the last things you do. But once you've done all the other initial steps, it does give some really great results. So, yeah.
And I'm not using input shaper on this machine, and the prints are looking fantastic. So while that's fair that it's, software fix is not an excuse to, release bad hardware, but this isn't bad hardware in my honest opinion, basically. And you have to look at it from the price perspective. Previously mentioned Ender 3, for example, is a great printer for the price. The Switchwire is a great printer for the price. And as you get up in quality, it's a logarithmic curve. You can approach precision to a point, but with each individual incremental step in quality increase, you're going to be spending a whole lot more money. So since you're building this at home, you can choose your own parts. You can choose your own adventure, basically. And you can spec higher, there's a whole channel on Gucci, printer builds where people are using Highwind and actual belts from Gates that they sourced from Gates directly, and Crazy Moons, Steppers, and you name it. You can throw a whole lot more money into your printer than we spec, and you are by all means free to do so. But again, we're releasing printers for, the general population. And if we say, V2.4, build it now, only for low price of $3,000. At the price of $3,000, you are bumping up against printers that can basically go up against V2, but also has a warranty and service contract, like Ultimaker, for example. So it's.
So you're telling us we should make a $10,000 Voron Switchwire?
Yes,
gold-plated extrusions.
100%. Get those gold-plated extrusions going, man. There's diamonds on the top, so they glisten.
I see Doc over there just, nodding his head. Yeah.
RGB. Just cover the hole with RGB everywhere.
How about maybe we can touch on the absolute explosion in serial requests over the last year.
COVID-19, everybody?
Over 500 serials for V2s, everybody?
Yeah, that's just V2s, too.
I did the math recently, and there are about 772 total serialized Vorons. That's V0s, V2s, V1s, and the Voron kits.
Oh my god. And that's just the serial ones.
That's just the serialed ones.
There's
That's
apparently a whole army of printers that are not serialed in China because Great Wall of China.
Yes.
Yep. I'm excited to kind of get some more information on those, and once we have a better serial registry, it'll be good to get them kind of integrated into our ecosystem. They've done a lot of cool custom work on finishing off the printed parts and some other really cool things. So I always hop over there sometimes just to check out what they're doing. But
yeah,
a lot of good work.
Our Chinese ambassador into that whole community, and it's sizable, and there are some pretty big fans over there. Apparently, it's cool. We're international, boys.
Yep, there is plans for a registry that is not tied to Reddit.
Yes, it's been in the works. The main reason being time and effort. The chief designer on that has been busy, like going to school and stuff or whatever, unimportant things in life.
It's surprising how many interesting projects there are, and then, I have like 5 things I want to just make videos about discussing how to set up things properly, or how to spec the proper stepper motor for your printer. There's just not enough time, and it's annoying sometimes. I wish I could multiply the hours of the day and get more out there.
It is a black hole, especially when this is like your side project and you still have to go spend time with your family and go to work and do adult things. And by the way, thank you for your videos on like the how-to. I've been enjoying the Input Shaper series.
Yep, I have a lot of. I was going to put one out this weekend, but I got tied down in belt tension hell trying to figure out. I think a lot of Voron owners, like we say, not too tight, not too loose, but people's definition of tight and loose are very widely varying. So I'm trying to tie it back to a kind of consistent, it's not just frequency that people say. You have to define where you're measuring frequency and the position of the gantry and all that type of stuff. So I'm trying to tie it all back together and kind of get a more consistent view on things, not only with Input Shaper, but also without. So hopefully over the next, I'm going to say month or 2, because I'm going to give myself some time to do that. We'll have some more documentation out about that. So
awesome. No, it's great. I'm excited. It definitely solves a whole bunch of issues on the mechanical side of things because physics.
Right. Yep. And I think the other interesting thing, we've been using the accelerometers on the tool head. There's maybe 10 to 20 people and the Voron Discord who have started to post data about that. And it's really interesting seeing kind of I generally have an idea of what the resonances should look like, but when they are not like they're supposed to be, you can kind of always point it back to, oh, I found out that my XY joint was loose, or my B belt was more tension than my A belt, and all those types of things. It really gives you a lot of rich feedback that I'm interested to see. It's only $6 for the sensor, or you can get a 10-pack for like $10, or a 5-pack for $10. So, it may be an interesting troubleshooting device down the road, just to sort out some of those more complex issues that you wouldn't have otherwise thought about. So,
yeah. Thanks to abundance of smartphones and quadcopters, there's no shortage of accelerometers available for cheap. And of course, Wii's. We gotta have a Wii. It's the first device to use accelerometer a lot. Nintendo Wii? Yeah. I don't know where Doc is.
He left.
Yes. Audio issues.
Let's see if there's other questions here.
What I want to know. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Someone asked, are there drawbacks of using input shaper? Won't it do things like small features are blurred, and is there dimensionality issues? And I think that's a really interesting question that I think there's people looking into. If you look at the GitHub thread where Dimitri's merging some of this code, there's actually an issue where people are seeing that their lines don't connect as well to the perimeters as they expect. And he did some simulations on, assuming your printer has, say, a 30 hertz or various frequencies of resonance, looking at the dimension kind of inaccuracy, kind of during that sharp transition where the tool head stops and turns around the other direction. And I think the current hypothesis right now is that input shaper actually puts your tool head more closely where it's supposed to be, but that actually can leave some gaps between the kind of infill section and the perimeter, just because it's actually stopping where it's supposed to instead of kind of overshooting where it was supposed to. So there's a lot of interesting things there. I definitely think we need more data, but as we continue to print more and learn more, we'll find out more where those kind of corner cases are and how to compensate for them as needed. So. Let's see here.
Where are you pulling all these questions from, by the way?
That was from, I thought that was from the live QA. Yep. The Voron live QA channel and Voron design. So.
Okay.
Let's see here.
What are the big needs and wants for engineering help as far as the community is concerned? Someone asked that question.
I think I would like to comment on that. So there's been some really good work kind of behind the scenes with the community picking up various kind of pet projects they have and really diving deep and kind of doing a very controlled study on various parameters. Like I think there's a few people that have been working on the toolhead design for Afterburner, looking at both part cooling and hot end cooling. And I've seen pictures of them. They have like 20 or 30 tool heads that they printed out and tested using everything from measuring the temperature of the heat break, and seeing how effective it gets cooled. All that type of data collection is really critical because it takes time and effort. You have to design those experiments and kind of be meticulous about it. And it's great to see more of the community getting up to speed with that and kind of finding something they're passionate about and kind of seeing how far it can go. So I think the more, like if there's something specific that you're interested in that you want to kind of promote or develop on, by all means reach out. You can reach out to me or just post in the Discord, and we just like people who are passionate about stuff and can do the work and we'll see the results down the road. I know they've been working on it for the last month or two, but there's been some great results, so we're excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, this is a robotics project, so which involves mechanical, electrical engineering, and software engineering. That's the best thing about 3D printers, like the applications of robotics. That's widely known to people. People don't usually go, "Oh, robotics." So you make robots for industrial purposes. Oh no, I create 3D printers in my spare time. What Eddie mentioned, like aforementioned study on inductive probes. I kind of flippantly said, "Well, you built a fixture and buy probes," but that's not an easy ask. Basically, you have to do some mechanical engineering to make sure that you don't have backlash in the system, inherently. Then you have to make sure that the strike plate that you're triggering against is up to spec, and then the various parts and resistance in the wires and various factors involved, and then collecting the data and compiling the data and then making the data make sense. It's not an easy. It's a time-consuming effort. It's not easy, but the results in the end are marvelous when you have enough, when you put enough time and effort into something and you applied enough science into it, you can really see, just like what Eddie said, when you start looking at input shaper and start looking at accelerometer data, you're going to find things about your printer that you didn't know, which is kind of fascinating to me, that you can't see or measure with just our mammalian optical nerve objects. Precision.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to just finding an issue that personally you want to solve with your printer, and then diving into that and then making that available to the rest of the community. Because a lot of times, if you're not working on something that you're not personally invested in, it can be hard to maintain focus, essentially, or to keep that give a shit meter full.
I'm 100% agree. You gotta find something you're passionate about and then throw yourself into that, because otherwise it just feels like a second job.
Yeah, and making sure that you get the data so that it's easy to say, "Oh, I designed this new thing. It's amazing. It's so much better." But if you can back up that with data showing, yes, I measured the temperature at this place, and kind of explain your methodology to the rest of the community, those types of things can get pulled into future releases when we learn more. I know some people have been interested in doing stepper motor testing. Data sheets often are not at the microstepping kind of setup we use, and so getting data and saying, okay, what is the limits of this stepper motor, assuming that we're using interpolation on a TMC 2209 driver at 24 volts or 12 volts, or all those different types of things can get really interesting. So again, if there's something you're interested in, building that test rig that RCF mentioned for inductive probes, yes, that's work, but it's also could be really interesting to someone. So, our community is huge. We have a ton of people here. We have a lot of really rich talent and diverse backgrounds. So, again, if something interests you, just speak up and we'll figure out how to get it done. So,
yeah, data is king, essentially. If you can back up your claims with data and you've done extensive research on it, and if your experiments aren't flawed, this is kind of like the regular way of doing science. Basically, you gather the data, you gather the results, you compile them into something that looks marginally okay to somebody, and then you put it out for peer review in the Voron community, and then we'll go from there. And hopefully you already have a group of peers that you're working with. You're not just alone in your shop, isolated like all of us. Doing a vase, everybody. I haven't done a vase in a while. Maybe it's going to be watertight this time.
Has there been any update to the melty ducts from the mosquito Hotend on Afterburner?
There is some work being done on that, along with the airflow optimization of the afterburner ducts. That's kind of gotten grouped into one project.
Where is that at, by the way? Because I've been in Switchwire land for the past.
We'll point you to the right direction. So.
Okay. Oh, afterburner optimization channel. I see it. Look at that.
And will user mods continue to be an open channel? Yes. Answer to that is yes.
Was it ever not an open channel?
Yes and no.
Okay.
If you have questions about that, we can ask. Yeah.
I was thinking we can just take everything that people have done and like slap a patent on it and go full MakerBot. Shit! I could have saved this for April 1st. I've been trying to make that joke since like MZBot was founded. Like I was gonna release a video straight up saying like, "Oh, MZBot thinks is getting bought up by Stratasys, and we're gonna be part of MicroBot." But slowly, as the time went on, the joke became not funny. It became kind of sad at that point. I think the main melty duct issue is due to the width of mosquito Hotend, because V2, V6, V2, V6 heat block goes front to back, versus mosquito is actually wider than it is longer, so it gets a little closer, too close to the ducts. I've tried to fix it the last minute on 2.4 release, and apparently that didn't bode well. I haven't had an issue with it, so I'm also not using a whole lot of mosquitoes.
I think there's also a lot of different types of ABS blends. Some of them will have a lower kind of melting point than others, and I know that's not. I don't want to diminish that by saying, "Oh, you're just using the wrong type of ABS." I'm not saying that whatsoever. But if you are getting a lot more melting than you've seen other people, especially like if you're using ESUN ABS plus, that will likely have a lower melting point and will warp easier under high temperatures. The same thing I noticed recently with Hatchbox ABS. It started to heat creep in a certain case where, let's say, KVP ABS did not. So there's always going to be a continuum. They're not all just plain ABS. So it's always worthwhile to try a different brand and see if that helps you at all. So
yeah, it's a little bit of a complex issue because I've seen posts from people who say that the first print they ran, their ducts are melty afterwards, and then the other side of the page, I've run my V0 for almost 6 months now, and the ducts sit the same distance, if not closer, to my mosquito heat block, and they haven't melted at all. So it's a strange issue, and I'm looking forward to some of the airflow stuff that we're looking at.
I'm almost curious if maybe like with the way that the part cooling ducts are now, maybe it somehow creates this like circulation that pulls the hot air off the block and kind of maybe there's a dead zone or something like that. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the airflow optimization. So
yeah, a couple of years ago, the ESUN rep that I talked to was saying that they're actually going, even though it's not labeled ABS Plus, they are starting to use basically the same formulations for both ABS and ABS Plus, which means the glass transition temperature of that plastic is going to be lower than pure ABS that you get from KVP, for example.
And again, as I believe in Circus brought up, you can always use a PC ABS or some other slightly higher temp blend if you want to. If you're kind of having consistent issues, that's another way of kind of going around that. But
absolutely, why not nylon?
Sounds like Doc is missing audio here. So is there anything else we needed to cover today or wanted to cover today?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we covered most of the questions.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of the questions. So We're right around an hour and a half, so.
That's a short stream by our standards.
And
We're
we've
trying to
covered
make them a
so
bit more
much.
manageable.
What was that?
We've covered so much as well.
It's true. We kind of went. We usually like bullshit for an hour and a half and then go to Q&A, but this time we just switched directly to Q&A. And that saved a whole bunch of time. Doc, do you have audio yet?
Since he is typing, I would guess that would be no. So.
Oh, sad panda. All right. Release three printers in a stream. Yeah, that was last time.
Yep.
Yeah, that was insane. Let's not do that again. That was a little too much. We should stagger them.
And poor Makerbeam still has not recovered.
Oh, Jesus.
Have they posted an update recently about the things they're doing? I know it was almost like every other week they'd kind of post what they were doing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I know they bought machinery and they're cutting their stuff themselves now. And on one hand, I feel bad for them, but on the other hand, like we're just converting aluminum into money for them, so I can't feel too bad.
Okay. So I see that. So I'll touch base on the comment earlier about Voron user mods and liability and all that type of stuff. There was some discussion a little while ago about, is the Voron, can it be a high temp machine, all those types of things. And I think our current stance at this time is that we really don't want to talk about heated chambers, actively heated chambers. There's just a lot of ways that essentially that could go wrong. So as of right now, a bed heater is pretty safe. It's attached to a slab of aluminum. People have been using them for many years. It's fairly, well understood. We have thermal cutouts, all those types of things. But actively adding additional power to your chamber to heat it up, there's a lot of potential safety issues there that we just don't want to, we would discourage people from, using a Voron to do that and focus more on, building a printer that is specifically designed for that from the ground up. And so, as of right now, that is kind of something we'd rather not see, just from the safety issues right now. So let's see here.
Looks like the doc's microphone issues cannot be reset unless we basically go not live and then live again. So Eddie, you're the spokesperson for now. And it's just you and me. Cool. And whoever else's microphone is working.
Sounds good.
Sorry, Doc. He seems to be okay with it.
Let's see here. Is there any last questions? Let's try to wrap it up here in a few minutes.
V2.5. I just saw that.
RCF? Any V2.5?
V2.5 hasn't crossed my mind yet.
I'll touch on V1.9 because someone will probably ask that next. There is no V1.9 right now. I really haven't thought about what that entails. There's always, I think one of the pain points right now is at least for me personally, is that the V1 frame is actually more expensive than the V2 frame. And that kind of bugs me a little bit because V1 is supposed to be cheaper, and it is. It makes up for it in other areas. But I think there's a few ways of simplifying a few of the parts just to kind of bring the cost down some more. I know I've alluded to checking out a 3-point kind of bed setup in the future, as a future option. Again, I don't think it's necessary with the 250 or 300 millimeter sizes we have right now, but some people have expressed interest. So it's one of those things I'm interested in taking a look at and seeing how we can make it work. So again, there's no ETA on that. That's well down the road a ways. Again, I have limited time. I've been focused more on some other documentation and studies. So
And like buying a house and moving.
yes, buying a house and moving and getting a dog and lots of other
You got
fun
a
things.
dog?
Yep.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yep.
COVID dog.
COVID dog.
Did you name it COVID?
No, I did not.
Good. Good for you.
Yep.
You could always go back to like printed bed carriages, and then all of that extrusion goes away.
Yeah, there's always ways.
Yes.
There's always things, but
everybody who were around in V.1 days loved to print those in ABS. Those are hot ticket
huge,
items.
yeah. Those were pretty big, kind of large items. Was there issues with it warping at all, or?
I have a V1 bed carriage just to remind myself. It's a singular piece of ABS plastic. It's like
that is impressive. That is very impressive.
Yeah, and that was because I didn't want to put extrusions around the bed.
Yep. The other thing I'll touch on for V1.9, right now the tool head wires go through the A module. If you have not had to swap out your parts continually for development, then you probably don't care about it. But since I do care about it. So likely those wires will be routed somewhere else. So you don't have to fish all the wires through your A drive whenever you change out an A or B module. So that's something that will eventually be fixed. But again, it's not an issue really unless you're completely replacing your gantry over and over again. So. And
this is how Vorons eventually become, fun machines to assemble, because at least one person on this dev team will have to do it 30 times, and it will drive them insane, and they will fix that process. And then eventually, becomes easier for everybody involved by the time machine is released.
Question came in. Does the Voron design... Hold on, let me read it, and I'll fuck it up. Does the Voron design team have any design specs that they work to that would be willing to share?
You have that... RCF, you had that document.
Process document. We do have a work in process document that covers some, basic stuff as sort of like, fitments of different commonly used screw sizes and things like that.
Right.
That we have, but
yeah, I started working on that about a year ago, and then things happened, and then I stopped working on it, and then somebody else picked it up. There are minutia of different things that we use, wall thicknesses. It's a lot of like, don't do this, basically.
Sticking to the toolbox of commonly used parts.
Yes, off the shelf, please. What else?
Overhang support.
Overhangs.
Inbuilt support if needed, and try not to if possible. Clearances for different clearance fits, or slip through screws or things like that. There's a lot of kind of interesting stuff in there. Maybe eventually it's another document, not another piece of documentation, but it would be cool if we could share that, because I think it would make it easier, down the road.
I think a lot of things in that document inspired the Voron users guidelines that we have, the copy pasta for submissions. It's not a comprehensive list, obviously, from that document, but a lot of common sense stuff, like your parts need to be not require supports, yada yada, all that stuff. So yeah. I didn't mean to step on you, Joshua.
No, you're good.
Cool.
Let's see here. I think that's pretty much it.
Cool. Now that somebody mentioned it, I want to try non-planar printing on a Switchwire.
I think we'll have to work on some clearances for the part cooling fans, because I think afterburners are fairly flat, rectangular versus the nozzle. There's not a lot of clearance for angles.
Yeah,
But
I might have to take some clippers to the duct, and I'll call that my 3D tool head.
But yeah, that'll be really cool to try that out. I wanted to, but then I looked at the redesign for Afterburner, and I was like, that'll be one of those projects that are way down on my list of things after printing hips and ABS and a ton of other fun things. But
yeah, and that's, you know, that's how projects like V0 was. I started working on V0 and kind of got it, I don't know, 20% there maybe. And then, you know, I bought a house and moved and all of that, that's involved in that. And then Nimgria came along and it's like, ooh, that looks cool. I want to do that. And then he picked it up and then now we have it. So that's how things go. Somebody starts a project and they abandon it. Somebody else picks it up and says, that's really cool. I want to work on it. Or somebody comes in with a whole new idea and then.
I should just post a list of all the things I want to work on, and then if anyone from Voron is like, oh, that sounds interesting to me too, then they can just take it off my list and do it themselves. Yes,
absolutely. Voron,
and then I can cheer them on from the sidelines. That would be great.
They're like, yeah, you go. Awesome. This is great.
Things that are interesting. So, yep.
All right.
Cool. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Again, thank you, Steve, for pitching in on Switchwire. Thank you, Doc, for organizing the stream, even though you lost audio halfway through. I still appreciate and love you. And I thank you for this development community and the fan base. I watched Matt Cat's video that he submitted for the video contest, and I mean, hit me right here. We have an amazing community, and we'll keep designing cool stuff for you guys to print and build, and you guys keep hanging around and making the community as amazing as it is now. So thank you all.